Hi, everyone. Welcome to our webinar. Uh, this webinar is entitled Visualizing Water Quality Trends in the Lake Erie Watershed. This webinar series called Freshwater Science will highlight Ohio Sea Grant and partnering scientists every month. Every quarter is a different focus, from human health and fish farming to harmful algal blooms and human decision making, bringing applied research to the public on issues that affect our Lake Erie communities. I'm Jill Gentis-Banicki from Ohio Sea Grant and Stone Laboratory, and joining me today are Dr. Nathan Manning and Dr. Colleen Cosgrove from Heidelberg University. Dr. Nathan Manning is a research scientist at the National Center for Water Quality Research at Heidelberg and an incoming assistant professor in the Department of Biology at Bowling Green State University. Dr. Manning's research focuses on the interface between terrestrial and aquatic systems, particularly on changes in point source runoff and nutrient loading in Western Lake Erie. Areas of research include monitoring phosphorus reductions in the Maumee River and understanding the impact of increased salinization on rivers across the Great Lakes. Dr. Colleen Cosgrove is finishing a postdoc at the National Center for Water Quality Research here at Heidelberg, and her research in this role has focused on load estimation techniques, and most recently, the creation of this dashboard that we're just discussing today. So we're delighted to have both of them here today to discuss this ODHD-funded Harmful Algal Bloom Research Initiative project. Before we do that, just a few things about the webinar themselves. During our presentation, all participants will be in a listen-only mode. Afterwards, around 12:20, I'll conduct a question and answer session. If you'd like to ask a question during the presentation, please feel free to pull up that chat feature located at the bottom of your screen, and I'll collect and pose your questions out to Dr. Manning and Dr. Cosgrove at the end of their presentation. As a reminder, this webinar has auto captioning and is being recorded to be posted on our website for later viewing. Also, we will post a webinar survey in the chat feature toward the end of the half an hour. If you could please take a few minutes after the webinar to fill out that survey, it always helps us continue to bring you great webinars. So without any further delay, I'd like to introduce Drs. Manning and Dr. Cosgrove presenting Visualizing Water Quality Trends in the Lake Erie Watershed. Dr. Manning.
Great. Thanks, Jill. It's a great introduction. And thanks everybody for being here. So we're really excited about this this project and this data portal that we've constructed. We've had a data portal in the past, right? All the data that we collect at the National Center for Water Quality Research. However, it's been more focused on strict data downloads and more towards the sort of academic side for researchers. This data is public, right? The data that we collect, either through state funding or federal funding, is public data. And a big push for this project, this HABRI project, was to make that public data public in a way that is accessible to everybody. Right, not just other researchers, not just people working at different agencies, but the general public that lives in these watersheds, that relies on these rivers and Lake Erie for their livelihood, for their water, and things like the harmful algal blooms, particularly the 2014. Issue in Toledo really brings this sort of data up to into the public eye, and so by providing this data and providing a way for people to visualize this data in a way that can be understandable to them is really important, not just for us at the National Center for Water Quality Research, but for everyone that's doing work across the Great Lakes. So today, I'm going to walk through the current state of the new portal. It is still in sort of a beta test stage, but we're getting very close. We're basically just down to some wording things that need to be added in. And this will go live to the public um, during the harmful algal bloom forecast at the end of the month, June 25th. And so, today's sort of the sneak preview. Here are the things that this portal can show you. Here are the things that you can do with it, and sort of get people interested and get some eyes on it before the official launch. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen here and take you to the portal. Okay. All right. So let me reload this so you can see. When you come to the portal, you'll come to this login page, right? We ask everybody to log in to create an access, and then once you log in, you'll come to the landing page. The login is just so that we know sort of who's looking at the data, how many people are accessing the data. It's not something that we're going to collect names and sell them to spam and get lots of emails from it. No. This is just sort of internal tracking on our end, just so that we sort of know who's where people are from that are interested in this data and that sort of thing. So when you come in, you've logged in, you come and you come to the landing page, and it looks like this, right? Describes a little bit about what the dashboard is. It shows you, sort of who funded this, right? That this is funding for this was provided by Ohio Sea Grant and the Ohio Department of Higher Education, supported in a large part by Ohio Environmental Protection Agency. And this dashboard contains data not just from us, but also from the USGS, right? Primarily right now, the flow data that we present is from the USGS gauges that are associated with our monitoring sites. And I'll talk a little bit more about sort of the USGS data as we go along. So come to the landing page, tells you a little bit about it, and shows you a little bit about sort of the questions that we're asked, often by the public and by other academics and by agency people, things like what are the spring loading season dissolved reactive phosphorus loads and flow weighted mean concentrations? What do they look like over the last 5 years, 10 years, over the period of record for a river, right? These are the sort of things, right, that we're asked, right? And, can you compare the Maumee to the River Raisin or to the Sandusky? And these are all things now that you can make on your own. And we'll show you how to do that here in just a moment. Another quick thing to show, across the top, there are lots of different tabs, right? So there's the dashboard landing page. Next to that is a water quality trends, explore the data, download the data, sensor data, and then this About Us tab. So this tells you a little bit more about the National Center for Water Quality Research. If you don't know who we are, this will give you a little bit of background on, how the lab was founded, what the sort of the mission of the lab is, and how we collect the data that we collect, right? And then why we have this dashboard. So another nice thing on this one, we have a map that shows you all of our locations, right? Chickasaw, Shallow Run, Potato Run, Blanchard, the Maumee is up here, right? So all of our sampling, not just in the Lake Erie watershed, we also have Grand Lake St. Mary's, right? Chickasaw, Beaver, and Coldwater, and some down here on the Ohio River. So we have the Muskingum, the Great Miami, and the Scioto, which is actually off the map here, just down a little further south, right? So, we focus on Lake Erie primarily, but that's not the only data that we collect. So if you're interested in Ohio River tributaries, the Great Miami, the Scioto, and the Muskingum, that data is available for you as well. And if you scroll down, we have a list of all of our sites that we sample, and then lots of metadata. right? So this is getting into a little bit of the weeds for some people, but other people might be really interested in, what gauge station exactly are we using to get flow data, right? Where is it located, right? How big is the watershed, right? And we can see that, we have a big range of watershed sizes, right? Some that are, 500,000 acres, all the way up to the Maumee, over 4 million, and then the Muskingum, almost 5 million. So a wide range of watershed sizes are presented here, are shown in our data. Another thing that's on here is the SON data, right? So these are our sensors that we have deployed out at these different sites. You can click on this link and it'll take you to the Seagull page where that data is stored. And so you can, go to, the Tiffin River site, or you can go to the Blanchard River and look at real-time data for things like dissolved oxygen, pH, that sort of thing for those rivers. If you notice up at the top, there is a tab for that that'll have a little clearer sort of link to each of those sites for you if you're interested particularly in that real-time SON data. So as we go through this, one thing that we can look at, right, the trends in our data over time. If we want to look at, say, the Maumee River, this is the one that'll come up automatically for you when you come up, but you can select any of our rivers and look at data for those. We'll stick with the Maumee here. And this gives you a little bit more sort of control over what the units are that you're seeing and how that data is being presented, right? This is a little more sort of fixed in place for specific agencies or people that have very specific needs, right? So you can choose whether you present the data in cubic meters per second or cubic feet per second. You can check your load units. Do you want it in metric tons? Are you interested in unit area loads, right? So basically how much phosphorus or nitrogen or sediment is coming off of each of these watersheds per acre, right? Or per hectare. So we can do pounds per acre. We can do kilograms per hectare. We also have different load estimators that are available, right? So load flex, WRTDS. WRTDS is the one that everybody seems to really be excited about and moving to. And so we present that as well. And then a Beal's ratio estimator, which is sort of an in-house load estimator that we have. And so you can look at all of those, see the differences, right? There will be differences between these different load estimators. They're generally very slight, but just because they have slightly different ways that they calculate loads. So we have loading season trends, right? This is the March through July. This is the time period that you're concerned with if you're interested in harmful algal blooms primarily. We can add what's called a teal send slope, right? Which gives you sort of the long-term trend for this data, right? So we can see flow on the left here over the period of record for the Maumee, which goes back to 1975. We can see that flow has decreased significantly, but if we look at the trend in TP load over the past 50 years, it's pretty flat, right? But we can see that there's lots of ups and downs. And so if we're really only interested in, say, 2010 to 2025, 2026, we can pick what years we see, right? So 2010 to 2026, and it should update slowly. Oh, there it goes. Right? And so we can see the trends over the past 15 years or 16 years. And they're different, right? As you change that window that you look at, these relationships may change. If you like these plots that it produces for you, right? Up here, you have the ability to download those plots, right? As PNGs. There are different options to sort of zoom in on different points, right? Reset all the axes, compare data, right? So it'll tell you what these data points are And you can do that for, right now, TP, DRP, so the dissolved reactive phosphorus, the one that sort of everybody's really interested in for harmful algal blooms, right? And we do this loading season. We also have annual trends, right? So it'll show you the annual trends. This is WRTDS's flow weighted or flow normalized load. And we can see the difference, in flow weighted mean versus load and how that compares to flow. We also have daily trends. This one might take a second to load because there's lots and lots of data. This is every data point that we have collected. And so you can see the seasonality in this. Highs in the spring, lows in the fall, repeating every year for loads, as well as the flow weighted mean concentrations. Now, in the future, there will be another tab next to this that will allow you to compare our data in the Maumee to the USGS data that's collected in the Maumee, right? And so you can put them side by side and look at the Heidelberg daily data, the USGS storm flow data, look at how those compare over time. With that, we don't have that up yet because to have that USGS data on our website, it has to be approved and published data. And so we're waiting on that from the USGS to give us sort of the okay to show that on our website. But they've said that they agree with this and they're happy to do it. But just there's some government hoops that have to be jumped through to show the data, and so that's coming soon in the next couple of months, that sort of thing. But the next trend or the next tab on here is the Explore HTLP data, which I think is the one that most people will be the most excited about and most interested in. For this one, you can pick multiple rivers, right? So if you're interested in the western basin of Lake Erie, you can say, I want to see the Maumee. I want to compare that to, say, the Portage River and the Sandusky and the Raisin, right? And so we can put multiple rivers on here and see the flow differences. If we want to see load, flow weighted mean concentration, or just the raw concentrations, that's also available. We can change our time frames, spring, monthly. You can change your estimator, right? If we want to see WRTDS instead of load flex or RBEL. And we can do different kinds of plots, right? So let's say we want to look at DRP loads over time, and we can see, right, the Maumee in blue here, much, much higher than the Portage, the Sandusky, and the Raisin, but that's really a scale issue, right? The Maumee is, 4 times the size of the Sandusky or the Raisin, and so another way that we can look at that then is the flow weighted mean concentrations, and we can see now the Portage and the Sandusky and the Maumee all line up very nicely. The Raisin's down here in red. Raisin tends to be lower in flow weighted mean concentration of DRP. If we want to do scatter plots, we can do scatter plots, and we can see the relationship of the different rivers, how they react to flow. And this is nice. We can add a second axis, and we can say, well, we want to see DRP and TP on the same plot. What does that look like? Let me give it a second. There it goes. Right? And so now we can look at both TP on the second y-axis, DRP on the first y-axis, and look at how those relationships are the similar or dissimilar between multiple rivers, right? And so you can do multiple rivers here. You can do multiple time ranges. This is one that you can play around with and make the figure that you want, right? That shows the data that you're interested in over the time frame that you're interested in. And again, you just click on this, download this, right? Takes a snapshot of that figure, and then you have that figure for a presentation or an email, like a newsletter or something that you can send out. and they're all being done in essentially the same way, right? And so we know that it's the same data presented in the same way each time, and so that gives you a little more confidence in those figures, right? That you know they're all being the same data is being shown in the same way. So we have all of these ways to make these figures for you. But if you're really just interested in the data itself, you just want those concentrations or those loads, we also have that, right? You can select several rivers here. If I want the Maumee and the Cuyahoga, right? We can do that over this, period of record. You can change whatever dates you want it to look like. And then download those into, in this case, it would be a zip file because this is a very large data set. Both of these rivers go back, 40 plus years. But we can, produce it as a CSV file if you are using it for something like R, statistics packages. It generally prefers CSV files. We can do that. If you want an Excel file, we can do that. And again, sample is the concentration, the observed concentration. And for this, you'll be able to download our suspended sediments, total phosphorus, soluble reactive phosphorus, nitrate, nitrite, total Kjeldahl nitrogen, chloride, sulfate, and silica, as well as conductivity if it's available for that river, right? And so lots and lots of data is available to you. You can download this data. When you download it, it'll give you the way to cite the data as well. It's up here as well. We have a Zenodo, a DOI for the data so that it's properly cited when it's used. And again, we have a sensor data tab that will link you to the Seagull site where that data is hosted in real time, and our About Us, and then a general how to use, right? What do the different tabs do? What do the different buttons do? So we're really excited about this new portal. We've had it out for testing to a number of agency people and other academics that basically asked them to go in and break it. Everybody's had very positive things to say about the interface, and I'll say that Colleen, my postdoc, Dr. Cosgrove, has done a really great job, essentially building this from the ground up. We worked with people from OEPA and ODA and ODNR, particularly, and USGS to really make this a one-stop shop, as it were, for Western Lake Erie data. There are lots of different groups, lots of different individuals that want to be able to see this data. And like I said at the beginning, this is public data, and we want to make this data as available as possible to as many people as possible, and in a way that allows them, some way to be involved with the data, right? That it's not just a spreadsheet with a bunch of numbers, but they can go in and they can visualize this data in a way that makes sense to them, right? And so they can see these trends over time. They can see how things have changed over time. And there's lots of different options there for that. So I think that's about it for the walkthrough here. I don't know, Colleen, if there's anything that you wanted to add about sort of the operation of the portal or anything.
No, I think you covered everything pretty well. I mean, it's very thorough, which is great.
Oh, good. Like I said, we're very excited about this. We've had a data portal in the past, and it worked fine for what it was, right? It was there to allow people to just download our data. Had some visualization ability, but not nearly anything like what this new one is. And so I think that the main thrust of the HABRI was to make this data available in a way that is accessible. And I think Colleen has done a great job building this website to fulfill that. And I'm happy to take any questions. and discuss sort of, the rollout of the website and all of that.
All
Thank you.
right. We've gotten several questions, a few clarifying questions. Let me just go through those first. Um, do you have features for internal loading of phosphorus?
So in lake internal loading, I'm assuming is what they're asking. No,
I think so.
that's not something that we monitor. So we're monitoring all of the tributaries. We're not monitoring the lake directly.
Okay. And are you measuring eh, are you measuring and recording nitrogen loads, both inorganic and organic nitrogen?
Yeah. So I can jump over to that now. Um, so on these drop downs here, if we want to look, we have TKN and nitrate nitrite, right? So you have your organic and inorganic nitrogen. So we can look at TKN versus nitrate. So we have box plots available as well if you like box plots. I really like box plots. I think that they're a great way to look at this sort of thing. So, TKN in the Maumee versus the Portage versus the Sandusky, if we want to look at nitrate in those as well, right? It'll give us that. So yes, we have nitrate, nitrite, TKN that are available on the website.
All right. Another question we got was how far back do phosphorus and nitrogen loading data go?
Depends on the river, but for the Maumee and the Sandusky, it goes back to 1975. Those were the first two rivers that we started with at the National Center for Water Quality Research. Back then, it was the River Lab. And it just depends on essentially when we started monitoring, right? So those two go back to 75. We have several that start in 1982. So the Cuyahoga, and I think the Raisin starts sometime in the 80s. And it ranges. Most of the rivers will have data prior to 2000, but there are some that we didn't start monitoring until mid 2000, like 2008, 2009, and then a couple that came online in the 2010s. So it just depends on the river, but for the Maumee and the Sandusky, sort of the two big ones that people are generally interested in with Lake Erie stuff, 1975.
All right. Another question that we had was, do you have DRP trends for Maumee tributaries?
Yes. So we can look at, so if we look at the trends, if we want to look at the tributaries of the Maumee, we can find one here. There's the Blanchard. We can look at the Blanchard. Give it a second. It's on dailies. So we can look at the loading season trends for the Blanchard. 2010. This right now is 2010 to 2026. The Blanchard, we have the Tiffin. There's the Tiffin River, and then we have sub tributaries, right? So we have things like Shallow and Potato Run. Those are tributaries of the Blanchard. South Turkey Foot, West Creek, Wolf Creek. So we do have, and if you zoom in on the map, right, it can show you all of our, this one might be better, all of our different sub tributaries, right? So the Maumee, this is our main one. This is at Waterville. This is the one that we report as the Maumee. We have, Wolf Creek is here, South Turkey Foot, West Creek, Lost Creek, the Tiffin, the Blanchard, Potato, and Shallow.
All right. We got another question about, let me just read here. DRP, W or FWMC looks like it's going down over time as we had hoped it would be with all the
Yes.
work done in the Maumee watershed in the last 15 years. The rest of the Western Basin tributaries look similar. Do the Central Basin, Grand Lake, St. Mary's, and Ohio River tributaries have similar declines since some of the recent state programs have gone beyond the Lake Erie watershed and may have actions that lead to decreased DRP?
Yeah. So the decreases in flow weighted mean concentrations, particularly for DRP, um, we really saw big decreases in the Maumee and its subwatersheds. The Sandusky and the Portage have also seen similar decreases, and those were the areas that were really the initial focus of some of the H2 Ohio programs. Um, for rivers like the Cuyahoga, we haven't seen as much in the Cuyahoga, but the Cuyahoga has always been very low, right? The Huron has always been very low. For the Ohio River watersheds, we are starting to see decreases in DRP in those watersheds, primarily in the Muskingum. But they have not been as sort of dramatic as we have seen in the Maumee. But again, those watersheds haven't had sort of the same focus, the same intensity of management actions that some of those others have.
Okay. Another question that we had was you had watersheds labeled in one of the charts as agriculture or pasture
Yeah,
among other labels. How is animal agriculture treated in your characterizations of the watershed?
that's a good question. So this is coming from um, this is the NLDS, the land data survey data. We did not do the divisions of the watersheds ourselves. So I would refer you to, I'm assuming it would be USGS that made those distinctions. So
Okay. We've had several people asking when they're going to be able to access this information.
yes,
So I just wanted to make sure that this was correct. We're going to have that link available to folks at the HABS forecast
yes,
June 25th. And I can send an email out to all the folks on this call to let
yeah,
them know when it's up. So
yeah,
just as everyone, so I've gotten probably like a handful of different people asking, where is it? Where is it? So they're wanting it. And now it's June
yes,
25th. You'll have to wait until
great.
June 25th.
June 25th will be the official rollout. Like I said, we're finishing up sort of the beta, beta stage testing here. Send it out to a bunch of people and ask them to break it basically, and go back and find where it breaks and fix those things and finish up, polishing some of the language and that sort of thing. So June 25th, the site will go live to the public. Um, Again, you'll be asked to register for it, but it's really just sort of an internal check for us just to see who's interested in the data, and then you'll have access to all of this that I've shown you, and over time things will be updated, right? So I think right now the goal is to update data every 6 months. Um, uh, if not 6 months, then it would be every water year, right? So 2025 water year the calendar year actually I think is available now, and so it takes us 6 to 8 months to do all of our internal QC, make sure that all the data is correct, make sure all that the trends are right, and allow for the USGS to to approve their data, their flow data, so that we can do the loads, right? We're not going to show anything that's provisional data from the USGS on this website. Everything that'll be uploaded will be accepted, approved data. So you don't have to worry about it, changing 6 months down the road, which is part of why we have that sort of gap. Um, if you are interested in real-time data, right, the SONs are out, um, and they're returning, it depends on the SON, but, hourly or as little as 15 minute, every 15 minutes, they're reporting, dissolved oxygen and temperature, conductivity. Some of them have chlorophyll sensors on them. And so the links to that will also be available to you. So, yeah, June 25th, sign up. Hopefully the website doesn't crash from too many people trying to sign up at once, but I think we're solid on that. Um, yeah, I look
All
forward
right.
to everybody using it.
Two last questions. One was a clarifying question of, are there monitoring stations for the St. Joseph's and sub-watershed Fish Creek?
Uh, they exist. We don't monitor anything on the St. Joe.
Okay.
So the USGS does have monitoring sites on the St. Joe's. I don't know if Fish Creek is one of them. There's a gauge there, but I don't know that they're doing any data collection beyond, stage and discharge there.
All right.
I
And
believe, if I can pop in real quick, I believe the plan is that some of the St. Joe's stations may be added into here once the USGS data is
Is
added in and
approved.
is accessible to people. But at the moment, obviously, yeah, we don't have anything of our own there.
Yeah, so that's a good point. That when the USGS and NCWQR comparison data tab is live, once that data is approved on the USGS end, there will be other stations there that aren't our stations, right? It'll be the US, all of the US, well, most of the USGS stations in the Maumee that collect similar data to us, right? And so there will be sites that there's no direct comparison, and so that you might be able to find some of those St. Joe's, Auglays, St. Mary's sites that we personally do not monitor.
all right. And one last question. We had a couple people asking if they are pulling this information from the website. Is there a spot on the website that gives guidance on how to cite that data?
Yes, yes. So if we go to the data download, just at the top here, right, cited as right now it's this 2022 Zenodo. It'll be updated, and when it gets updated, that'll be here. And I believe when you download the data, there will be a note on the download itself that says, this is how this data should be cited.
All right. Well, I think we've gotten all the questions answered. So I wanted to see if we'll just wrap this webinar up. I want to again thank Dr. Manning and Dr. Cosgrove for their willingness to talk to us today about their research. This was really an excellent dashboard, and I think a lot of people are really excited about this.
Good.
I
I'm glad.
also, oh, go ahead.
Oh no, I'm just saying I'm glad. I'm glad that people are excited. This is
Yes, I'm seeing a lot of activity, so people are
it's
excited.
yeah, it's
Um,
50 plus years of data that we want people to have access to so that they can have a better understanding of how their region, how their lakes, how their rivers are changing.
That's great. That's great. Um, for those that are still on, I just want to remind everyone that there is a survey URL for this webinar in the chat feature. So if you can take a few minutes to fill that out. This webinar series is sponsored by Ohio Sea Grant and will continue next month with University of Toledo talking about smarter solutions for reducing nutrients in the Maumee watershed. That registration link is in the chat. Thanks again, Dr. Manning, Dr. Cosgrove, and all the participants on this webinar. We hope that this was beneficial, and we hope that you'll join us again for an upcoming webinar. Thank you again, Dr. Manning, Dr. Cosgrove. This was great. We really appreciate you taking the time to talk with us today.
Thank
Thank you
you,
so much
and
for having us.
thanks everybody for joining in.
Remember, June 25th.
June 25th.
All
That's
right,
when that's
perfect.
when it'll be
Thank
live.
you again.
Thanks.
Thank you.